Elias Mercer did not expect his life to change because of a government email. He almost deleted it. The message talked about something called the Interspecies Cultural Housing Program. Elias thought it was a joke at first. Earth had made contact with alien civilizations only a few years ago, and most of that contact happened far away, on space stations or research ships. Normal people did not suddenly get alien roommates. But Elias was not exactly normal in the government's eyes. He lived alone in a small apartment near the city edge. He had no criminal record, no strong political opinions, and no family living with him. Most importantly, he had a spare room. The program promised good rent money and said the alien participant was peaceful, friendly, and fully trained in Earth customs. That last part would later prove to be very incorrect. Elias signed the form after staring at the payment number for a full minute. He told himself it would only be for a few months. He could handle anything for a few months. On the day his new roommate arrived, Elias cleaned the apartment twice. He checked the door lock, the kitchen, and the guest room again and again. He practiced polite greetings in the mirror, feeling slightly foolish. "Hello. Welcome to Earth," he said to himself. It sounded strange. When the doorbell rang, Elias took a deep breath and opened the door. Standing there was a girl. She looked mostly human at first glance. She was about his height, with pale blue skin that softly reflected the light. Her hair floated slightly, as if underwater, glowing with gentle colors that shifted when she moved. Her eyes were large and bright, with no visible pupils. She was smiling. She was also standing far too close. Before Elias could say anything, she leaned forward until her face was only inches from his. "Ah," she said happily. "You are Elias Mercer. Your breath pattern matches the file." Elias froze. "Yes," he said carefully, leaning back without realizing it. "I am. And you are?" She leaned closer again, her eyes studying his face with deep interest.
"I am Lyra the Zanari," she said. "Your facial muscles are moving in small signals."
Is this joy or fear? Elias stepped back. She stepped forward. They ended up standing inside the apartment. Door still open. Faces still too close. "Maybe we should, talk from a little farther away?" Lyra blinked. Her smile faded, replaced by a confused look. "Farther?" she asked.
"Did I offend you already?"
"No,"
Elias said quickly. "It's just humans like a bit of space when talking." Lyra tilted her head.
"How much space?" she asked. Elias took another step back. Lyra matched him exactly. He stopped moving.
"This is fine," he said weakly. Lyra's smile returned, brighter than before.
"Excellent," she said. "This distance feels very intimate. I am honored." Elias did not know what to say to that. Eventually, they managed to close the door and move to the living room. Elias sat on the couch. Lyra sat next to him. Very next to him. Their shoulders touched. Elias shifted slightly. Lyra shifted closer. "So," Elias said, trying to sound calm. "Welcome to Earth. Welcome to, my apartment." "It is smaller than expected," Lyra said, looking around. "But warm. And it smells like roasted plant seeds." "Coffee," Elias said. She leaned in, her nose almost touching his cup. "May I observe?" she asked. "Sure," Elias said. She observed it for a long time. Then she observed his hands. "Then his face again. You blink often," she said. "Is that a comfort habit? It's just blinking?" Elias said. Fascinating. She pulled out a small wrist device and recorded something. Elias tried not to feel nervous. Lyra stood suddenly and walked around the room, stopping very close to everything she looked at. She leaned close to the walls, the table, the window, and finally to Elias again. You live alone, she said. Yes. Is that loneliness or preference? Elias thought about it. Both, I guess. She nodded, standing close enough that he could feel a faint warmth from her skin. Zanari do not live alone, she said. We share living space at all times. Physical closeness creates emotional balance. That's interesting, Elias said.
Lyra looked at him seriously.
You are uncomfortable, she said. Elias hesitated. He did not want to be rude. The program instructions had been very clear about kindness and respect. A little, he admitted. But it's okay. We're just different. Lyra stepped back suddenly, putting a full arm's length between them. Her expression looked strained, like someone holding their breath. This distance feels cold, she said softly. Elias felt a strange sense of guilt. We can figure it out, he said. That's what this program is for. Lyra relaxed slightly and nodded. Yes, learning. The first night passed with many small misunderstandings. Lyra did not understand doors. She kept standing close while Elias tried to explain things, then stepping back too far when she tried to respect his space. She followed him into the kitchen, the hallway, and almost into the bathroom before he gently closed the door. Private, he said. Ah, she said, standing just outside. Solitude rituals. When Elias finally went to bed, he locked his door out of habit, then felt bad about it. He unlocked it again. In the morning, he woke up to a face inches from his own. He screamed. Lyra jumped back, startled. You are unresponsive, she said quickly. I feared your consciousness had stopped. Elias sat up, heart racing. Please don't do that, he said. She nodded seriously.
Understood. Humans prefer to awaken alone?
Yes.
Very much. Over breakfast, things improved slightly. Lyra tried sitting across the table instead of next to him. She fidgeted constantly, clearly uncomfortable, but she stayed there.
I am learning restraint, she said.
It is difficult. I appreciate it, Elias said honestly. As the days passed, Elias realized something surprising. Lyra was not trying to be annoying. She was trying to connect. Everything she did came from curiosity and sincerity. She asked endless questions. Why do humans avoid eye contact sometimes? Why do they say I'm fine when they are not? Why do they apologize even when they are not at fault? When Elias explained, she listened closely, leaning forward but stopping herself just before crossing the invisible line. You endure discomfort to protect social harmony, she said one evening. That is impressive. Elias shrugged. We're used to it. She smiled at him then, standing just a little too close again.
I am glad I was placed with you, she said. Elias felt his face warm.
Elias slowly learned that living with Lyra was less like having a roommate and more like being studied by a very polite, very curious scientist who had no natural sense of distance. Every morning followed the same pattern. Elias would wake up, stretch, and step out of his room, only to find Lyra already awake, standing nearby. Not too close anymore, but close enough that he always noticed her first. She was trying. He could see that. Good morning, Elias, she said one day, standing exactly where she had measured the night before. This is the agreed greeting distance. That's good, Elias said, rubbing his eyes. You don't have to measure it every time. I do, she replied seriously. Otherwise my body forgets. That sentence stayed in his mind longer than he expected. Lyra followed him through his daily routine. But now she paused before entering rooms, watching him carefully. If he stepped back, she stopped. If he looked unsure, she leaned away. She was learning human signals faster than any guidebook could teach. Still, accidents happened. One afternoon, Elias sat on the couch, scrolling through news on his tablet. Lyra sat on the floor in front of him, which seemed fine at first. Then she leaned back, resting her head against his knee. Elias froze. Lyra looked up slowly. "Error?" she asked. Elias hesitated. He could tell she was comfortable, relaxed. He did not want to hurt her feelings. "It's unexpected," he said carefully. She moved immediately, sitting upright again, hands folded.
"I apologize," she said. "I assumed shared support posture was acceptable during quiet activities."
Elias sighed softly. "You don't need to apologize every time," he said. "We're both learning." She watched him closely, then nodded. "I will attempt fewer assumptions." As the days went on, Elias started noticing things about Lyra that went beyond her strange habits. She woke early every day, but never seemed tired. She did not eat much, but she enjoyed tasting human food, even when it made her glow faintly different colors. She laughed in short, soft sounds when Elias told jokes, even bad ones. Most surprising of all, she listened. When Elias talked about his job, his worries, or even small annoyances, she gave him her full attention. No distractions, no looking away, just focus. Humans rarely did that. One evening, Elias came home later than usual. Work had been stressful. The city was loud. His head hurt. Lyra noticed immediately. "You are carrying tension," she said, standing near the kitchen entrance.
"Your shoulders are elevated."
Long day, Elias said. She stepped closer, then stopped herself halfway.
"May I offer comfort?" she asked. Elias paused. No one had asked him that so directly before. "What kind of comfort?" he asked. "Zenari provide presence," she said. "Silent closeness. It stabilizes emotional systems." Elias thought about it. He was tired of thinking, tired of deciding. "Okay," he said, "but let me choose the distance." She nodded quickly. They sat on the couch, not touching, but close enough that Elias could feel warmth without pressure. They did not talk. Lyra stayed still, clearly holding herself back. Strangely, it worked. Elias felt his breathing slow. His thoughts settled. "Thank you,"
he said quietly.
Lyra's eyes softened. "You are welcome," she said. "I am glad." That night, Elias realized something important. Humans had learned to survive without closeness, but that did not mean they did not need it. They just controlled it differently. Lyra, in her own way, was reminding him of that. Meanwhile, Lyra was learning something equally important. She recorded her observations late at night, whispering into her wrist device while Elias slept. "Humans experience connection without constant physical contact," she said. "They rely on trust, patience, and symbolic gestures. This requires high emotional discipline." She paused. "I find this admirable." Her reports grew longer, her tone less clinical. One afternoon, Lyra asked a question that caught Elias off guard.
"Do humans choose roommates based on compatibility or necessity?" she asked.
"Usually necessity," Elias replied. "Rent is expensive."
"And if necessity becomes comfort?" Elias blinked. "Then it becomes something good." He said.
She smiled, standing just a little closer than planned. Later that week, an official observer from the exchange program visited the apartment.
Elias had been nervous all day. Lyra, however, seemed calm.
The observer, a human woman with a serious expression, asked many questions. Lyra answered politely, keeping proper distance, sitting where Elias had suggested.
"You seem to be adapting well," the observer said. "Yes," Lyra replied.
The human demonstrates exceptional patience. The observer smiled at Elias.
"Anything you'd like to report?" she asked him. Elias glanced at Lyra. She was watching him carefully, clearly worried. "No," he said. "We're doing fine." After the observer left, Lyra let out a long breath. "I feared failure," she admitted. "Zinari struggle with isolation-based species." "You're not failing," Elias said. "You're doing better than most humans would." She looked at him with surprise. "That is high praise," she said softly. That night, Lyra sat closer than usual while they watched a movie. Elias noticed, but did not move away. She noticed too, and smiled gently. Neither of them said anything. Somewhere far above Earth, Zinare analysts reviewed Lyra's data. They expected reports about primitive habits and emotional confusion. Instead, they saw something else. Humans avoided closeness not because they feared connection, but because they respected it. They understood that space could be a gift, not a rejection. The analysts were quiet for a long time. Back in the apartment, Elias and Lyra sat together in comfortable silence, unaware that their small compromises were already changing how humanity was seen among the stars. They were just two roommates, learning where to stand and when to stay. By the third week, Elias noticed that the apartment felt different. Not cleaner, not bigger. Just quieter in a good way. Lyra had learned the rhythm of the place. She no longer followed Elias everywhere, but she was always aware of where he was. When he entered a room, she looked up. When he sighed, she noticed. When he stayed silent, longer than usual, she adjusted her distance, without being asked. She still wanted to be close. That part had not changed. But now, she hesitated first. That hesitation mattered. One morning, Elias was making breakfast when Lyra stood behind him, just outside arm's reach. She watched him cut fruit with careful movements.
"You are precise today," she said.
"I didn't sleep well," Elias replied. She nodded, stepping back half a step. "You are compensating with control," she said gently. Elias paused. "Is that something Zinari do?" he asked. "No," she said. "That is something I learned from observing humans." He smiled faintly. Over time, Elias began to realize how much effort Lyra was putting into restraint. Sometimes her hands twitched as if she wanted to reach out. Sometimes she leaned forward and stopped herself suddenly, breathing slowly until the urge passed. One evening, Elias found her sitting alone in the guest room, lights dimmed, knees pulled close to her chest. "You okay?" he asked from the doorway. She looked up quickly and straightened. "Yes," she said. Then, after a pause, "No." Elias stepped inside and sat on the bed, leaving space between them. "What's wrong?" he asked. She stared at the floor. "I am experiencing internal conflict," she said. "Prolonged distance is affecting my emotional balance." Elias felt a small twist in his chest. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" he asked. "I did not wish to burden you," she said. "Humans hide discomfort to maintain harmony." "I am copying the behavior." Elias laughed softly, then stopped. "That's not always a good habit," he said. She looked at him, eyes wide.
"So, I am learning incorrectly?" "No," Elias said quickly. "You're learning too well."
He thought for a moment.
"What helps you?" he asked. "Proximity," she answered immediately.
Not touching. Just closeness without rejection. Elias took a deep breath.
Okay, he said. Let's figure out something that works for both of us. They moved to the living room.
Elias sat on the couch. He tapped the cushion beside him. "Sit here," he said. "This close is okay." Lyra approached slowly, carefully, like someone stepping onto thin ice. She sat down exactly where he indicated, hands folded, body tense. "You can relax," Elias said. She tried, her shoulders slowly lowered. helpful?" she said quietly. They stayed like that for a long time. From that day on, they created unspoken rules. Some evenings were shared, quiet evenings. They sat close but did not talk. Some days were human space days, and Lyra respected them even when it was difficult. Elias began to admire her discipline. Humans often thought of themselves as emotionally complex, but Lyra was learning an entirely foreign system, without complaint. She was rewiring instinct with intention. That took strength. Meanwhile, Lyra continued her reports, but they changed. She no longer described humans as confusing. She described them as controlled. Humans regulate desire through social agreements, she recorded. They accept internal discomfort to preserve trust. This is not weakness. It is restraint-based intelligence. She paused often while recording now. I find this beautiful. One afternoon, Elias caught her watching him with a thoughtful expression. What? He asked. You do many things alone, she said. Yeah, he replied. That's normal. Is it chosen? She asked. Sometimes, he said honestly. Sometimes it's just easier. She nodded slowly. Zanari fear being alone, she said. Humans endure it. Endure is a strong word, Elias said. She tilted her head. You endure it quietly, she said. That may be stronger. That night, Elias lay awake thinking about that. He had never thought of himself as strong. A few days later, Elias came home sick. His head hurt. His body felt heavy. He dropped his bag near the door and sank onto the couch. Lyra noticed immediately. You are ill, she said.
Just a cold, Elias replied weakly. She hesitated, then asked, May I assist? Yes, Elias said without thinking.
She brought him water, a blanket, and medicine, following his instructions exactly. She sat nearby, watching him with concern but keeping distance. After a while, Elias spoke softly. You can sit closer, he said. It's okay. She moved closer and sat beside him. This time, she did not overthink it. They stayed that way while Elias rested. Lyra did not touch him, but she stayed present, alert, steady. When Elias fell asleep, his breathing slow and even, Lyra stayed there for hours. Later, she recorded another note. Humans allow closeness when vulnerable, she said. They choose it carefully. This makes it meaningful. When Elias recovered, something between them had changed. Not dramatically, just subtly. They laughed more easily. Silence felt less heavy. Distance felt intentional, not awkward. One evening, Elias asked Lyra a question he had avoided until now. Do you miss your people? He asked. She was quiet for a long time. Yes, she said. But I am not lonely. Elias smiled. I'm glad. She looked at him, standing closer than usual. So am I. Far away, Zanari officials reviewed Lyra's newest data. They had expected stress markers, reports of incompatibility. Instead, they saw adaptation. More than that, they saw cooperation without dominance, a species that could set boundaries without cruelty, a species that could offer closeness without demand. This human, one analyst noted, is not exceptional. That is what makes it exceptional, another replied. Back on Earth, Elias and Lyra sat together, planning a grocery list. You buy too many snacks, Lyra said.
They're for emergencies, Elias replied. Humans prepare for imaginary futures, she said.
Yeah, he said. It keeps us calm. She smiled softly. I am learning many calming things from you, she said. Elias looked at her, just for a moment, and realized something important. Humanity did not impress the galaxy with strength or speed. It impressed it with patience. And in one small apartment, that patience was quietly changing 2 lives at once. The changes did not happen all at once. They never did with humans. For Elias, it began with small things. He noticed he no longer felt surprised when Lyra stood nearby. Her presence had become familiar. Like background music he did not need to focus on to enjoy. He noticed when she was gone, even for a short time, and felt a quiet relief when she returned. For Lyra, the changes were deeper and harder to name. She still wanted closeness, but now she understood why she wanted it. It was no longer just instinct. It was trust. It was comfort. It was the quiet understanding that presence did not have to mean pressure. One afternoon, Lyra left the apartment alone for the first time. She told Elias she wanted to walk the nearby streets and observe humans without him beside her. Elias was nervous, but supportive. "You'll be okay," he said. "Just remember personal space." She nodded seriously. "I have practiced," she said. When she returned hours later, she looked tired, but thoughtful.
"They move very fast," she said, "and they avoid each other carefully."
"That's city life," Elias replied. She sat down slowly. "They live surrounded by others," she said, "yet they remain alone by choice." "This is confusing." Elias shrugged.
"It gives us control," he said. "Too much closeness can feel like losing yourself." Lyra thought about that for a long time.
That night, she recorded one of her longest reports yet. "Humans value autonomy," she said quietly. "They manage connection through rules and signals. They do not reject closeness. They schedule it. This allows emotional survival in dense populations." She paused, then added softly, "I admire this." Her reports were no longer just data. They were arguments. Far from Earth, Zenari scholars gathered to discuss her findings. Some were uncomfortable. "Humans suppress natural bonding," one said. "This is unhealthy." "They replace instinct with structure," another replied.
"That requires effort. Effort was something the Zenari respected. Meanwhile, Elias was facing changes of his own."
At work, he noticed how often people interrupted each other, how rarely they listened fully. He caught himself applying what he had learned from Lyra, pausing, giving space, choosing when to speak. People responded well. One coworker even said, "You're calmer lately." Elias did not mention his alien roommate. Back at home, he and Lyra fell into easy patterns. They cooked together, carefully avoiding collisions in the small kitchen. They watched documentaries and commented quietly. Sometimes they sat close, sometimes they didn't. Neither felt rejected anymore. One evening, Lyra asked a question that surprised him. "Why did you agree to the program?" she asked. Elias thought for a moment. "Money," he said honestly. Then he smiled. "And curiosity." She nodded. "And now?" He looked at her. "Now?" he said. "I'm glad I did." She stood there, unsure whether to move closer or not. He opened his arms slightly. She stepped into the space he offered, stopping just before touching. "This distance?" she asked. "This distance?" He confirmed. They stayed like that for a long moment. The next day, Elias received another email from the exchange program. This one was different. It requested permission to share anonymized details of his living arrangement for interspecies research. It praised the success of the placement and asked if he would be willing to continue participation. Elias read it twice. That evening, he showed it to Lyra. "They want to study us," he said. She looked thoughtful, not upset. "We are already being studied," she said. "But now they want to understand why it works." Elias nodded. "How do you feel about that?" he asked. She considered carefully.
"I feel proud," she said, "and nervous."
"That makes two of us," Elias said.
Over the following weeks, Subtle attention began forming around Earth. Not public attention. Academic attention. Quiet observation. Other species began reviewing human behavioral models, not for conflict or trade, but for social stability. Why did humans endure loneliness instead of forcing connection? Why did they create rules to protect emotional boundaries? Why did they choose patience over instinct? The answers kept leading back to one idea: self-control. One Zenare council member summarized it simply. Humans are dangerous not because they are aggressive, they said, but because they can stop themselves. Back in the apartment, none of this was known. Elias was teaching Lyra how to cook a simple meal. She stood beside him, close enough that their elbows almost touched. You measure ingredients very loosely, she said. Cooking isn't science, Elias replied.
It's feeling, she nodded. Humans, trust intuition, she said.
Even in tasks that affect survival. Most of the time, Elias said. They laughed. Later that night, Lyra sat alone, thinking. She realized something important. Zenare closeness was automatic. Humans' closeness was chosen. That choice made it powerful. It also made it rare. She understood now why Elias had lived alone for so long. Why humans built walls, not to keep others out, but to protect what they let in. The next morning, she made a decision.
I want to adjust my report, she told Elias.
About what? He asked. About humans? She said.
I focus too much on what they lack. And now, I want to describe what they maintain, she said. Despite everything. Elias smiled. That sounds fair. As her updated report traveled through alien networks, reactions grew stronger. Some species felt uneasy. Others felt curious. A few felt inspired. A species that could regulate closeness could regulate power. A species that chose patience could endure long futures.
In one small apartment, Lyra stood near the window, watching the city lights. So many humans, she said.
So many separate lives. Elias stood beside her, not touching. And somehow, he said, we make it work. She looked at him. Yes, she said softly. You do. The message arrived early in the morning. Elias was half awake when his phone chimed. He checked it without thinking, then sat up slowly as the words registered in his mind. The exchange program was ending. Not immediately, but soon. Lyra's assignment was nearing completion. Her reports were finished. Her data had been reviewed, discussed, and shared across multiple species. The program thanked Elias for his participation and informed him that arrangements would be made for Lyra's return. Elias stared at the screen for a long time. When he finally looked up, Lyra was standing in the doorway. She had not meant to listen. She never did. But she saw his expression. It has been decided, she said quietly. Yes, Elias replied. They stood there, not moving closer, not stepping away. That day felt different from the start. The apartment seemed smaller. The air felt heavier. Even the usual sounds from outside felt distant. They went through their routine, but everything felt careful, like both of them were afraid of doing something wrong. Breakfast was quiet. Conversation was slow. Finally, Lyra spoke. I will be leaving in 9 days, she said. Elias nodded.
That's not much time, he said. No, she agreed.
She watched him closely, then looked away. I have prepared my final report, she said. It is complete. Yeah? Elias said. How does it feel? She thought carefully before answering. It feels accurate, she said, but incomplete. Elias looked at her. Incomplete how? He asked. She hesitated. It contains everything I learned about humans, she said, but not everything I experienced. Elias smiled sadly. That sounds very human, he said. Over the next few days, they did things slowly, intentionally. They cooked meals together. They walked outside in the evenings. They watched the city lights from the window, standing close but not touching. Neither of them said what they were thinking. On the 5th day, Elias finally broke the silence.
"Do you regret coming here?"
he asked. Lyra answered immediately.
"No," she said. "Never."
She paused and added, "Do you regret hosting me?"
Elias shook his head.
"No," he said. "I think I would have regretted it if I hadn't." She smiled softly. "That is mutual." On the 7th day, a representative from the exchange program arrived again. This time, the tone was respectful, almost cautious. The representative thanked Elias personally and praised the success of the placement. She mentioned that Lyra's findings had caused significant discussion beyond Earth. "Humans are being reconsidered," she said carefully. "Not as unpredictable, but as controlled."
Elias blinked. "That's good, right?"
he asked. The representative smiled.
In this universe, she said.
"Yes, very good." After she left, Elias and Lyra sat together in silence. "They are changing how others see us," Elias said.
"Yes," Lyra replied, "without meaning to." "That's kind of our thing," Elias said.
She laughed softly. That night, Lyra stayed awake, reviewing her memories instead of her data. She remembered how uncomfortable distance had felt at first, how cold, how painful. She remembered learning to wait, to ask, to choose. She remembered how humans endured loneliness not because they liked it, but because they respected others enough not to force closeness. She understood now why that mattered. On the final day, Lyra packed her belongings slowly. She folded her few personal items with care. Elias watched from the doorway, unsure what to do. When she finished, she turned to him. "I do not know the correct human behavior for this moment," she said. Elias swallowed. "There isn't one," he said.
"That's kind of the problem," she nodded. "Then I will do what feels right," she said.
She stepped closer, stopping just short of touching him. "You taught me restraint," she said. "You taught me that connection is strongest when chosen." Elias felt his throat tighten. "You taught me something too," he said. "That it's okay to want closeness, that needing it doesn't make you weak." She smiled. "I am glad." They stood there, facing each other, the space between them full of meaning. Slowly, carefully, Elias stepped forward. Lyra did the same. They met in the middle. Not rushing, not clinging, just close enough to feel present. They stayed that way for a long time. When it was time to go, the transport arrived quietly. Lyra picked up her bag and walked to the door. She turned back one last time.
"I will remember this place," she said.
"And you." Elias nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Me, too." She hesitated, then raised her hand in a human gesture she had practiced many times. "Goodbye, Elias. Goodbye, Lyra." The door closed softly. The apartment felt empty, but not lonely. Days passed. Elias returned to his routine: work, sleep, life. But something had changed. He noticed himself more patient with others, more aware of space and choice. Far beyond Earth, Lyra stood before the Zenari Council. Her final statement was simple. "Humans are not loud," she said. "They are not always close, but they are careful, and that makes them powerful." The council listened. Humanity was no longer seen as reckless or unstable. They were seen as disciplined, a species that could restrain itself, could be trusted. Back on Earth, Elias stood by the window one evening, watching the lights. He felt the distance, but he also felt the connection, and he knew deep down that space did not mean separation. Sometimes it meant respect, And that was something humanity had mastered quietly, all along. Neither of them realized that their quiet success was already reshaping how humanity was understood beyond Earth. They were not loud, they were not forceful. They were careful. And in a universe full of instinct, that made all the difference.